Okay, grade 12s. So this is probably some of the best stuff that you could use for programming because we're going to look at reading and writing to a file. So I'm going to kind of do it in two portions. I'll do writing. I'll stop the video, sort of reset, and do some reading. But then what I'll do on Wednesday is have it in a GUI. So you can see the difference between just like doing sort of a text-based thing and just understanding the read and write, and then actually applying it to some sort of um, GUI because most of the stuff we've been doing is through that. So the most important thing you need to add, so to do any of this, is you need to do your, it's in the IO, which stands for input output, and we're going to use star here because we're going to use a bunch. So instead of just doing individual ones, which I know for terms of space, it's not necessarily the best, but really it's better to do it for us right now because we're not making super crazy ones. But yeah, we're going to import star from the input output stream. Now, the one thing that we have to do is we're going to use a lot of what's called try catches. And what these are they attempt to run a code, and if a runtime error appears, instead of it showing up as red text on the screen, we can make a print statement show up that will fix that. So like the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to make a new file, an air quoted file, because it has to be a file object. So this is like there's a class called file. We're going to call it file1. So there's a class called file. We're going to make a new object, and we're going to know it's a new object because new. So now we're going to access its constructor, which what you want to do is you just have to call it output test1 dot text. Now I'm calling it that because I'm going to make a new file with the GUI in here, and we'll have two different test files showing up. So this will be our test1. So here we've constructed a new file object. Now the trouble is you have to have it somewhere. So I think in here, basically, it'll be like in this part. So instead of in the source or the testing or the project or the build, there'll just be some sort of file. Like ours will be output test1. So because we're not like, because we don't know if it's going to be made or not the first time, this is where we're going to use our first try catch. Because we don't know if it exists on first run, make a try catch. And it's really cool because basically you just do this try, and with every try you have to have catch. And so there's always going to be with ours, because we have because we're dealing with input output, there's always going to be one of these. Now it says this is not going to happen, but what I'm going to do is check if the file does not exist. So I'm going to check if there's no file there. So I'm going to say if, and then you use the not here because there's a method for file1 called exists, and it says here returns true if and only if the file is there, otherwise false. So what's going to happen here is this one, if it says there's no file, saying not, it'll say, okay, so if this doesn't exist, or you could have done this. So instead of this one, you can just say if this equals false, then it's really nice and easy. File1 dot, and right here, create new file. and this will actually go and make the .txt called output.text1. So this is where this exception will be thrown because of it. And what you can do is e dot, and so I like to do this one a lot because this, for you at least, will show what's going on. The other catch that can occur, so you can have multiple catches. It's like having multiple else's, like an else ifs. But there's one called file not found exception, which comes specifically from this one here. And all I'm going to do is, first I'm going to say system.out. Yeah. And here, no file found. And I'm still going to do e dot print stack trace, because at least it'll show me that stuff. No. So at least now, if I run this, nothing will happen necessarily, except for if I go to my documents, my NetBeans projects, and then I go to read and write. Now there's this file here. I probably should have showed you that. Let's delete it. Let's see if when I run this, will it show it in real time? So I ran it, and then it made the file. Now if I run it again, it's not going to remake the file, it's just going to stay there. So only if it ever gets deleted, it'll be there. So that's how that one works. And that's probably the biggest thing you need right away at the start for reading and writing, is you need to make sure there is a file. Now, what I want to do to make it a little bit easier is, instead of just writing all this code here, what we should have done was made a method. Public void make, I guess we say check file, and this one takes in a file object called f. And all you'd have to do is take that out, put that here, change all this just to f, and then here we just check the file, and we just go check file. And then actually file 1. Non-static method. I guess we have to make this static. Okay. So all I did was just, I'm going to make everything into its own method, so then it is a lot easier to fix. So if this were to break, it would tell me it's somewhere in this method. So if it can't make the new file, then I'll know check there. So everything's still good. Then what we'll do is we'll just make a random writing to file for now. So public, I guess we gotta call it static again, and void. And I'm gonna call it write to file. And here, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take in a file again called f. And this is where it gets a bit weird, because so the one way of doing this is, and it's probably the best way, is to use these two different writer and reader streams. So it does take a lot to build them, but what it is these are the most precise ones that we can use. So if you look here, again, we're gonna have to use another try. Now, all we're gonna have here is this sort of catch in here. And what we're going to do is we need to open the file to write. Now we need to do it twice, which is you can use this one if you really want to, but it's a lot harder to write. So the file writer, what it does is it opens up the file to like be able to write, and true allows it to be rewritten. So true allows it to be, and I say rewritten like appended. If you didn't have the true here, what would happen is every time you wrote something, it would sort of create a new file that would wipe it away. So this one just like says, okay, let's open the file. It's going to be written to now, and it's going to be appended to it. And Java's like, cool, that's fine. But the file writer is like, I don't actually write files. So the one that actually writes is called a buffered writer. And I just use BW and FW just because it's a lot easier. I know I usually harp on you for bad variable names, but for this one, these are fine. And all you have to do is to make it be a buffered writer, all you need to do is you just need to put in the file writer object. So it needs that one. So that's why you kind of need these two different levels. It seems confusing, but it's just in order to write, you need to open it with this file writer, and then you need to open up this buffered writer, which will do the actual writing. And because they're so complex, that's why there's two different objects that deal with these things. And it's really nice and easy. All we have to do is br.write, and here we can put in whatever we want. So this is some text. What I'm going to do is, in order to add a new line, you can actually just like make it manually do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in 3 different lines. This is really cool. And then this is also tedious. Now we could do a while loop and have them input things. So these write to the text file and add a new line. And now, in order to actually save it, there's no, because we just hit Control S. The save for this is all you need to do is bw dot close, and it says closes the screen, flushing it first. Blah, blah, blah. All this means in our terms is it's like hitting Control S. And all we're going to do now is we're going to write. So write to file 1. So this one here, when we run it now, again, we'll do nothing. So ran pretty quickly, took 0 seconds to run the whole thing. But when I go here, my file now has this. It now has the 3 lines that I wrote. I'm going to stop for now. You'll come back to the second part of the video.